Hi, Power Factor fans, I'm Rick. And as I've mentioned, I think in earlier episodes, I am in the process of planning for what I'm calling the Galactic Hand-Sized Handgun Championship. And I think if you remember back last summer, we had a match at my club, and when I say my club, I mean Northwest Practical Pistol Association, which has been around in one form or another since the 70s. It dates back to the days pre-USPSA days of IPSC. We were affiliated with both USPSA and IDPA for a few years, and we've also hosted some kind of hybrid matches. We share the range at Renton Fish and Game Club with Renton Practical Shooters, which is a USPSA club, and they do good business there on a different weekend than we shoot. And I had some ideas for a single stack match, and I just thought, there's nobody who's more enthusiastic about single stack competition than USPSA shooters. And so I thought, if I'm going to put on a match, how about if I put on something that can be shot by both IDPA shooters and USPSA shooters? Bigger match, exposure to different kind of techniques and whatnot, and it actually was pretty successful. We ran 2 or 3 or 4 of those at Renton, and I came up with a hybrid set of rules that were sort of based on early editions of the Western States single stack match, which is held down at Rio Salado in Arizona. I went to 4 or 5 of those. And the first few of them used this kind of a hybrid scoring system that, as I recall, they called it Latham-Enos scoring. And it was very similar to IDPA's points plus time penalties, but they had the time penalties adjusted, kind of handicapped, so that unlike IDPA, you could have major and minor shooting together against each other. And it worked out pretty well. After I'd done it a couple of times, shot the match a couple of times, I decided for myself that, it works. You have a half-second penalty and load 10 rounds if you're shooting minor. You have a 0.3-second penalty and load 8 if you're shooting major. And it worked out pretty well. And so I've had this sense that you can have these kind of hybrid matches, get a number of different groups to participate, but of course it can't be so far from what's familiar for everybody or nobody's going to show up. I mean, that's one of the fears that I had is, are these IDPA shooters going to understand freestyle courses of fire? Are the USPSA guys going to be able to kind of slow down and adapt to a half second per point? Rather than hit factor scoring, and it really worked out pretty well. I mean, we were getting 50 or 60 shooters. It was a really good time, no complaints. Guys who shoot only IDPA and guys who shoot only USPSA mingling, sort of like cats and dogs living together. It was a really good time. And last summer we were planning a bug match, and backup gun is, of course, an IDPA division, and we were getting kind of a time crunch. I wanted to run it as an IDPA bug match. Time was getting kind of tight, and I got bailed out by the guys at Action Shooting International, Sandy and T-Ron and Robin. They said, hey, after I approached them, why don't we do it as a kind of a hybrid deal? Although normally ASI does not have any divisions or classifications, we just said, okay, we'll limit it to small guns. We'll use the old rule book bug rules for the gun, 3.5-inch auto pistol, 3-inch revolver. We'll use ASI scoring, which is 1 point per second down, which come 2017 is going to be IDPA rules anyway. If you haven't heard, it sounds like that's written in stone now. We're going to get a 1 second per point penalty in IDPA come 2017. And people have been agitating to have fault lines for cover calls in IDPA for years to kind of reduce the subjectivity of it. And that's one of the things that was implemented by ASI. They do have requirement that shooters use cover, but they use fault lines. So it wasn't that big of a deal to adapt the ASI rules for primarily IDPA shooters, although we did have ASI shooters showing up because it was an ASI sanctioned match, such as what their kind of equivalent of sanction. There was kind of a sanctioned deal like this. Yes, we approved that. I designed the courses of fire. They were approved by ASI's headquarters. It was a really fun time. I mean, everybody they bought into it, and there was no complaining. They just thought, point down, no big deal. Targets are pretty close when you're shooting, 3.5-inch auto pistols. I didn't challenge people's marksmanship too much. It was pretty close. But one of the things that we did that I sort of regretted afterwards is we had a bunch of 6-round stages. Normally, when you're shooting IDPA, stages are sort of designed around the assumption that everybody's going to have at least 6 rounds in their gun. So when I designed the bug stages, or what turned out to be the hand-sized handgun championship stages, I designed a bunch of 6-round stages because those were the new rules for bug. And I just thought, okay, let's go with that. We'll do 6-round stages, and it was mostly to get the round count up because we did have 7 shooting locations, and even if you have 14 6-round stages, that's still not a whole lot of shooting. So I just said, okay, let's do 6-round stages. But what that turned into is no 5-shot revolvers, because nobody's going to want to shoot their J-frame 5 rounds, do a 3 or 4 second reload to fire one more shot that everybody else is going to get to do without having to reload. So it essentially disallowed 5-shot revolvers, and then also turned all the stages into kind of limited scoring because nobody wanted to reload. If you have 3 targets engaged 2 each, you're going to go 2, 2, 2, and even if you drop a point or 3, you're not probably going to want to do a 2 or 3 second reload with your PPK to get off that one more shot. And so everybody had to kind of pick and tiptoe their way through these 6-round stages. So I decided, what we should have done is 5-round stages. Then if you've got a 5-shot revolver, you can be competitive if you don't have to reload. And if you've got a 6-round gun, you don't have to reload if you do your job, but if you do drop a point or 3, you miss a steel popper or something, you've got that 6th round. So that introduces some interesting challenges when you've got a match made up, and I had expected that we were going to get an 8th bay on our range, and that what I had planned to do was 16 5-round stages. So everybody would load 6, shoot their 5 shots on stage 1, do a tack load off the clock, walk over to stage 2, do their 5 rounds there, and just repeat 8 times. And the round count would be reasonable because we'd have 2 additional stages, and I just thought that'll be the way to go. So as it turns out, we did not get the extra bay. We're back to 7 shooting bays, and I was just trying to think of ways to kind of mix it up. Now, because ASI does not have course of fire rules, it's just a matter of, hey guys, can we run this stage? And if they say yes, we're good to go. So I thought, well, how can we mix things up? How can we make this a little more fun than just shoot these 5 targets with 1 round each, or shoot this target with 2 and this target with 3? I'm trying to mix it up a little bit. And one of the other games that we have at Renton Fish and Game, in addition to USPSA and IDPA, is Steel Challenge. So we have all the Steel Challenge, all the steel. There are monthly club matches run there, and I just thought, well, why don't we throw in a Steel Challenge stage? And then another feature of ASI is they do the occasional pickup gun stage, where they'll provide a pistol caliber carbine to complete some of the targets on the course of fire. So I thought, okay, I've got a steel stage, that gives me some variety. I've got a pickup gun, that gives me some variety. And then I'm trying to think, how can I mix up the target arrays so that they don't all start looking alike? So I start writing notes to myself. Okay, let's have a stage where we've got 5 targets that are engaged 1 shot each. Then we'll have a stage where there's 5 headshots, 1 shot each. And then one of the things that we used to do, that we did for 30 years that we can't do anymore because it's been banned, I call it the NWPPA rule. If you look in the IDPA rulebook, there's a specific ban against dividing targets into multiple targets. And what we used to do whenever we had a headshot target at our IDPA matches is we'd put a piece of black tape across the neck and declare the head a separate target. So if we had 2 to the body, 1 to the head, it would be engaged T1 with 2 rounds and T2 with 1 round. And we can't do that anymore in IDPA, but ASI doesn't have a ban against it, so we're going to reintroduce that at our NWPPA matches, and for a 5-round string, it's perfect because you can go 2 rounds to one target, 2 to the body, 1 to the head on the other target, and that's your 5 rounds. So we've got a couple of stages where that is our target array. And then I also wanted to bring back the famous Yo Homie, Is That My Briefcase stage. We've run that a couple of times in the past. I think it's sort of like the El Presidente of IDPA, I think, in that every club runs it. And we've built a couple of props over the years, but they sit out in the weather, and after a year or two, they just kind of melt, or when they're cleaning up the match, the range facilities, nobody recognizes what that rickety old thing is, so they keep getting burned on work days. But one of our ace carpenter guys built me up a new one with a hinged arm that's got a blue gun attached to it. So, of course, at the start, you're facing the target with the arm, with the blue gun pointed at you. At the start signal, you swat that arm away. 2 to the body, and then the other target, 2 to the body, 1 to the head, like in the movie, if you're familiar with the movie Collateral. If you're not, now you're familiar with it. So we've got the Yo Homie stage, we've got the Steel Challenge stage. I can't remember the name of the stage, but it's 4 plates set in a square formation, and then the stop plate is in the middle. And so sort of like the way they do it in Steel Challenge, we'll do 3 strings, and then record only the best string. So the idea is you can get a banker, do a reasonable run, get all 5 plates, and then you can turn up the wick a little bit, go a little faster, and then maybe try to burn the stage down, and you have a miss and it sucks. But if it works, you've got a great score. So I think that's why most people approach Steel Challenge, and that'll be something completely new for both the IDPA and the ASI guys, is these Steel Challenge stages that don't have falling steel. Because, of course, in IDPA and USPSA, we use only falling steel. So there's going to be, I think, a little bit of a learning curve for both the shooters and the staff to call misses on the steel, because if after you hit the stop plate, you can't make up any more shots. So if you go hit, miss, hit, and you realize you missed, you can go back, pick that shot up, hit the stop plate, and that's your time. But if you go hit, miss, hit the stop plate, you got a mic and you can't make it up. So some shooters want the SORO to call out mics so that they can get back and get that makeup shot. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes. But one of the guys who's involved in the Steel Challenge program at Renton is going to run, or at least going to set up that stage and kind of, I think, give us some little insight in how to run it. But it should be fun, and I think one of the things about introducing bug as a regular division in IDPA with the 6-round capacity and 6-round reloads is to get people shooting their bugs in regular matches. But I'm not seeing it. I mean, I'm not seeing people shooting their Glock 26 or their M&P Shield or their Colt Defender. I mean, I'm just not seeing those guns at club matches. So I think there's still a need, still a place for backup gun and matches specifically designed around small guns. But you still, I think, want to have that kind of variety of arrays, variety of start positions. We've got a car that we can use, so we'll do either a glove box start or start with the gun on the seat. We can shoot from inside the car at targets that are outside. We can stand outside the car and shoot at targets that surround the car. We've got a briefcase. Start a stage with the gun in the briefcase. We can also do draws from holster. So you can really do some stuff to mix it up so that all these 5-round stages don't start all looking alike. I've got one stage where you've got just a single swinger. You activate it by jerking on a rope with your weak hand, and then while holding the rope in your weak hand, you're engaging the swing or strong hand only. And then I've got another one where you're stepping on a platform activator, and that starts a no-shoot swinger swinging in front of the threat target. So engage the threat target with 5. And so you can just come up with some different things with target arrays, distances. You can shoot from standing, shooting kneeling, strong hand, weak hand. So there's really all kinds of stuff you can do. But I think if you limit it to 5 rounds per string, it really helps people to not have to, again, approach the stages with this sense of it's limited. There's a 6-round stage and I've got 6 rounds in the gun. I definitely don't want to reload. So you have the flexibility of having that 6th round, and I think it just makes things a little more fun. People don't feel quite so constrained. I think it'll be a good time. Hey Power Factor fans, I'm Rick, and we're going to bring back the trivia question. We haven't had a trivia question for a while. It came up at an IDPA match today, and so I just thought, at the time it happened, I just thought, hold it, what is the rule on that? I started shooting IDPA about 1999, and I think we're on if you include the rulebook revision of 2013, I think I'm on my 4th rulebook. And sometimes it's just a matter of, is that the newest rule or is that the oldest rule? But it came up on a stage, not surprisingly, in which each target needed to be engaged with a minimum of 3 rounds each. And I think we are so conditioned to engaging targets in practical pistol competition with 2 rounds each, that anytime we have a stage at our club that requires some other number, whether it's 1 or 4 or 3, people invariably, 1 or 2 people per squad will forget and shoot with the wrong number of rounds. And so the stage required a minimum of 3, and the procedure, you were sitting at a desk, 4 targets downrange to be engaged 3 each. Beep, pick up the gun off the table, and the shooter engages T1 with 2 rounds, transitions over to T2, puts 2 rounds on T2, and then you see the light bulb come on. Oh, geez, this is 3 rounds each. Comes back to T1 for a 3rd round, back to T2 for a 3rd round, and then engages T3 with 3 and T4 with 3. So the question is, when the procedure says engage each target with 3 rounds, minimum of 3 rounds with unlimited scoring, the shooter first engages with 2, transitions to another target, and then comes back to put a 3rd round on it, how many and what type of penalties apply? Good shooting, good guessing, good rulebook sleuthing, and we'll see you later.